Welcome back to Election Watch 2024. My name is Glenora Shipura, joined by the Namibian Sun editor, Trevor Njembela. Good afternoon, how are you?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm great under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances.
Yes.
Yes, I do understand that after widespread reports of irregularities, including ballot paper shortages, long queues, and technical failures, the ECN has extended voting to 2 more days, that is today and tomorrow. What is your take on this?
Yeah, so it's a very controversial decision. I think controversial because of the manner in which it was conducted. Yesterday, political parties were invited by ECN itself to its headquarters, where they said to this, to talk about all these issues that arose on Wednesday. And political parties went in full force to be there, making sure that they are represented at that meeting, arrived at the headquarters of ECN, and ECN, for some reason, just never showed up. They are just in their own offices there in the building. They never came to meet political parties, not opposition, because even the ruling party was represented, Session2 was there. And political parties started getting agitated by the fact that ECN was not communicating and that the meeting somehow was no longer taking place. So it appears to me that the reason why ECN was not meeting political parties is because they were having their own meetings at which they were making decisions where to send, where to continue voting without the input of political parties, without the consensus of political parties. They decided on their own that they are going to allow continuous voting in Khomas, Oshikoto, Oshana, and Kunene regions. There are other regions in the country that had similar issues that you just mentioned, and that ought to have been given an opportunity also to vote. Those regions are not on the list. So that is one aspect, the lack of consultation, this blatant disregard of political parties, because political parties are the ones that are being voted here, not ECN. So that is what happened. And then secondly, there was issues of, there are legal arguments that arose out of this situation. People saying that according to the Electoral Act, elections must be declared by the, you see, let me just say something. Last night when ECN announced that there will be this extension of voting, they said specifically, very late, maybe around 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, that they are going to recommend to the president, who in law is the only one allowed to determine voting days. They said they are going to recommend to the president that voting continues today and tomorrow. But they had already identified the places, the time of voting, while supposedly still waiting for the president to give consent to this. So it looks like everything was already done, the president had already consented, and this was just a showmanship. So very, very suspicious. Now, to the legal argument, I saw parts of the Electoral Act that was posted. I'm no legal expert. I must make a disclaimer there. But there was there's a circulating provision within the Electoral Act that says that the president must declare voting days, I think minimum 15 days in advance.
Yes.
So you can't just wake up one morning and say, oh, elections are tomorrow. And I think the reason why the president is bound to that time frame is so that you cannot take advantage of people by simply preparing yourself silently and then declare the voting tomorrow. So there has to be enough time for everybody to prepare themselves and all that. We saw political parties last night after the announcement saying we ought to be represented by party agents at these polling stations, and you are telling us at night that voting will continue tomorrow. Where are we going to organize people in the morning to run around the country to represent us.
And get to these polling stations.
Yes.
So we will continue these conversations, but right now we do have the Arandis constituency results. You know, results are still trickling in, and obviously there are now some polling stations that just opened today and for tomorrow. But let's take a look at the Arandis constituency results. As you can see there, SWAPO has 1,546, LPM has 1,178, IPC has 559, RP has 447, and PDM has 202. I'm just going to read the top 5.
Yeah, wow, that is very interesting. Very interesting results there. Maybe we can just ask our colleagues to put it back again.
Let's take a look again at the results in Arandis that are just trickling in now from the Arandis constituency.
Yeah. So what it tells us there is the ruling party leading by about just slightly 400, about 400 votes than the next competitor. The LPM actually very impressive because people tend to think that the LPM is only strong in the south, but there they are in Erongo, becoming second in one of their key constituencies, which is Arandis. So this is the 5th constituency that has so far announced its results. We know that Aranos, Gibeon, Karas East, and Mukwe constituencies have already all declared their results. And what is very consistent in all these results is the ruling party leading individually as a party. But the problem that SWAPO has faced in this election so far is that they are not making the 50% mark, because you can see the top 2 there that already is a very marginal lead. And if you add out of the total votes, there are how many? 4,000?
There are 4,171.
Absolutely. So one needed to win, to be the absolute winner there, you needed to win at least 2,000.
Over 2,000, I think, yes.
Yeah, more than 2,000 votes there. So SWAPO has 38%, if you look at this number now, 38%, meaning that 62% is within the opposition hands. And that has been the problem with SWAPO throughout this election so far. I mean, I saw, for example, the Mukwe constituency. Let's see if the colleagues can just put it up.
Let's take a look at the Mukwe constituency. Those ones came a little bit earlier before Arandis, but yes, let's take a look at that.
Yeah, so while it's coming up, I'll just tell you that in Mukwe, SWAPO has this huge number of
4,772 PDM. So this is the Mukwe 2024 National Assembly votes. So SWAPO party has 4,772, PDM has 1,607, IPC has 1,445, APP has 1,239, and the AR party has 318. I'm just reading the top 5. Yeah. And the total votes in the Mukwe constituency was 9,955.
Yeah. So again, that tells you now, because everybody has been talking about Kavango, the Kavango regions, as the SWAPO stronghold, which is not entirely wrong. It's not the wrong analysis to put it that way. But these are the regions that were supposed to be giving SWAPO an absolute majority. But when you look at that number, SWAPO has only gotten 47% of Mukwe. Of course, there are more constituencies in that region that will come that might give the ruling party more. But as of now, they have 4,000, way ahead of IPC that has, or PDM rather, that has 1.5 there.
Yeah, 1.6, yeah.
1.6, yes.
Over 1.6, yes.
Yes. So the second best party is actually a distant far. And this is a mistake that people are making, because they're only looking at individual scores. They're not looking at the overall picture now to say SWAPO actually here does not have the majority. The majority of the votes actually went to the opposition as a collective. So I saw people saying, oh, will the opposition now form coalitions or not, if this was now the final outcome in Parliament.
Can we take a look at, I think we should also try to compare what happened with the 2019 results in this constituency. Like, let's take a look at, for instance, in Mukwe in 2019 for the National Assembly results. So SWAPO had 4,913. APP had 655, PDM had 621, CDV had 112, and RDP had 64. The total votes at the time in 2019 in the Mukwe constituency were 6,678.
Yeah, so let's just stay with that slide. Let's stay with it. So 2019, SWAPO had gotten 3,000 more votes compared to what they got this year. So SWAPO got 74% of Mukwe in 2019. And it was so important that SWAPO actually was winning that way, because when you're above 50%, then it also helps you to maintain that going into the final parliamentary tally. Now, they are at 47. They dropped their support from 74% in 2019 to 47%. The party has lost a massive 3,000, more than 3,000 votes that it got in 2019. So that is not good news for SWAPO, and they would hope that other regions or other constituencies in the region will come to their say. It's because everybody thinks that SWAPO is the dominant force in the Kavango regions, which is true partially, but proportionally, the statistics that came out today do not look good for the ruling party.
And also, let's take a look at the fact that in Mukwe in 2019, 6,678 voted, whereas compared to the figure in 2024, where it's over 9,000, over 9,900, I believe. I stand to be corrected. We'll take a look at the figures, meaning 3,000 more people voted this time around for, in the Mukwe constituency, but not necessarily for the SWAPO party.
Yeah. So that is really the issue. And it's not unique to this. It's the same problem that we are talking about now in Arande's constituency, where the ruling party is ahead as an individual entity, but collectively the opposition is actually taking more votes. Aranos is the same situation. Hibian is the same situation. Of course, those are traditionally not traditionally, but LPM dominated in the last election in the southern parts. But we are seeing the same problems again for the ruling party.
Yes, so I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and say there's a trend or whatever, but so far with the 5 constituencies that we are looking at, right now we have Arande's 2024 National Assembly votes. The SWAPO party has 1,546, LPM has 1,178, IPC has 559, RP has 447, PDM has 202. The total votes for Arande's constituency are 4,171.
Yeah. So let's see if our colleagues from
let's take a look at how they performed in 2019 in National Assembly results. So SWAPO had 2,330, PDM had 1,329, UDF had 484, LPM had 399, RP had 326, and the total votes in 2019 was 5,341.
Yeah. So what that tells you, of course, LPM, look where they were in 2019, only having 399 votes,
and now
they are having 1,000 something, becoming the second best party in that constituency. PDM was number 2 in 2019. Now they have been knocked off their perch. Of course, IPC, we know that it did not exist in 2019 and did not participate in that election. It came third now. So this serious shedding of votes in this election by the ruling party, winning marginally, but failing to make that all-important 51 plus or 50 plus percent, because you need, as a ruling party, you need that in order to retain your parliamentary majority. And so far, the results have not produced that. SWAPO leading, but just not strong enough to cross the 50% mark.
Yeah, and can we get into that? I do understand that, like you said, the LPM, for instance, in 2019 didn't perform as it's performing right now in the 2024 results thus far. What would you attribute that to?
I don't know. I think, of course, LPM in 2019 was just a new party created in 2017. And a new opposition party does not always attract a lot of votes. People do not know what it stands for. But when you have a bit of time to build your brand and your brand of politics and your identity as a movement, you tend then to convince people to look into what you can deliver. I mean, LPM has 4 seats in the National Assembly at the moment. Bernardo Swartboy, a very firebrand kind of politician. Of course, he used to be with Henny Sebeb, who was equally firebrand in that sense. But I think that platform has also helped them really entrench themselves into the hearts of the people. And we are starting to see them actually making some gains outside their traditional southern base.
Now, let's get back to the conversation that we were having before regarding the ECN, the irregularities, and most, I don't want to say most people, but there is concerns that this is not a free and fair and credible election because of all these irregularities, stakeholders not being consulted on time. There's just a number of issues. What's your observation in terms of how the public has reacted to the irregularities?
I don't want to call it irregularities yet. I think it's too strong a word. Until we have seen enough of that. But the fact of the matter is that first people were talking about incompetence. Everybody was talking about incompetence, the fact that the ballot papers were running out in some areas and all these kind of things. But now it's graduating from just incompetence. It's actually graduating into what is starting to sound like a syndicate. And I'm ready to put my head on the chopping block for my view that there seems to be a systemic, deliberate attempt to frustrate voters, to trample upon voters' rights, and to favor particular establishments that are at play in this election. Because you couldn't have just in a boardroom set among yourselves as ECN. You are not the owner of the election. You are only a facilitator of that process. The owners of the election are the people of Namibia, and the parties that are representing them in this election. So they ought to have drawn their consensus and mandate from the political parties, from the Namibian people through their political parties, and say, where do we then allow continuous voting to take place? I have tweeted last night, my tweet is still up there, where I said, the irony is that in commerce, we have 288,000 registered voters. We had 175 polling stations on Wednesday in Commerce. And if you take the average, which is actually a very lenient average, but if we assume that because the average voters per polling station on Wednesday was at least 1,000 voters. So if that is the correct number, then you say 1,000 voters per polling station times 175,000 polling stations that were in this region, 175,000 people voted on Wednesday. It means 133,000 people did not vote because the total is 288. So 113,000 people did not vote. And what is the best way to resolve this issue? In the wisdom of ECN, is to create one polling station today and tomorrow in Windhoek. meaning on average 1,000 people voting today, 1,000 people voting tomorrow, 2,000 voting in 2 days out of 113,000 potential voters. Let me give you the contradiction, contrary to that. In Oshakati East has a total population of 39,000 people, according to the latest census. 39,000 people. That includes babies, that includes children that go to school, right? So in terms of the registered population of voters, it's even less. And mind you, some already voted on Wednesday, meaning that the number is even lesser. But there are 4 polling stations in Oshakati East. You could never make up what the logic is. You can only speculate and say that
indeed.
They are influencing election results.
That is some of the sentiments shared, especially by the opposition parties. Let's quickly take a look at the running total of the 5 constituencies as the results are trickling in. So that is on our ticker there. I think you, the viewers can take a look at the total for the 5 constituencies that as the results are trickling in. So we have Aranos, we have Gibeon,
we have Arandas and Mukwe.
And Mukwe, and Karas
Yes.
East as well.
Karas East, of course, yes.
And we have Oshakati East.
Yeah, so 21,000. So in Oshakati East, as you can see there now, so I was talking about the population, the overall population of nearly 40,000 people. So in terms of the registered voters in Oshakati East, you can see there 21,000 people, 21 only. And the bulk of those people have already voted on Wednesday. The very few people that remained now in that constituency have been given a massive 4 polling stations to vote. And Vindu, with more than 100,000 voters who couldn't make it, has been given 1 polling station. There can never be any explanation other than a criminal intent for me why it would have been done that way. Let me just,
before we continue that, we do have
please.
some information in Oshana where there is a polling station. This is one of the identified areas where some people are voting. Now, 3 hours later at Eveluluko Secondary School. Eveluluko, yes, thank you. In Oshakati East constituency, they have been waiting to start voting, and they're saying they've been waiting for 3 hours, and the station opened at 3 a.m., but they were still waiting. The presiding officer, Sakius Shipanga, said they were waiting for the ballot boxes to arrive, which were transported from Windhoek. The ballot boxes only arrived at 11 a.m. So that was an hour ago or so, but they have been waiting the whole time.
You can tell the appetite within the citizenry. People really want to participate. People want to make their democratic choice made, and that is how ECN is repaying them for their faith and appetite to participate in this election.
Yeah. Now it is please. Also the Oshana Governor Elia Irimari was also seen on site as Oshana Regional Electoral Officer Amen Oiva Haimbangu briefed him that they have now delivered all ballot boxes to the stations, taking second round of voters in the region. Now the voting will commence shortly. That's what they reported an hour ago. This polling site will be serving those who were unable to vote on Wednesday. Like you said, this is also concerning because we had the extension for today and tomorrow, and we have people still waiting in queues for 3 hours and plus, as we are reporting on some of the stations. This is very, very concerning for the people who are trying to exercise their democratic right to vote.
Yes, it is. And I've already been getting some sentiments from the one polling station that is available to people in Commerce region. People totally unhappy that the queues are long. But I wanted to alert you to something, because you see the problem is that when you do not make decisions openly and transparently, it also leaves room for speculation and rumor mongering. And I'm now going to speculate to you that I have seen messages circulating from officials of the ruling party saying to people, we are going to provide transport here in Commerce, saying we are going to provide transport to you to bus you to the one polling station that is available. So what does that say to me as a man who likes to maybe overthink but also be realistic sometimes, a lot of times? It would seem to me that there's a strategic move to say, let's give Commerce region one polling station and flood it with our own people, because that is the only thing I can deduce from this kind of behavior. Let's have only one polling station. Let's load our supporters, because you know where your supporters in the region are. In Windhoek, you can go wherever it is, you know where your supporters are. Let's create one polling station and flood it with our own supporters so that we influence the outcome of this election. Why would Windhoek, why would Commerce region, the largest region in the country, the most populous region in the country, have one polling station? There's no logical explanation for it. You could put Peter Sharma here, you could put Elsie Ngikembwe here, the chairperson of the ECN, you can put all of them, the commissioners, and say, explain. They will not give you any reason for that.
I hear you. There are some concerns. I think the LPM has also voiced that it's unfair for some people in, let's say, the Omaheke region, in Erongo, and also in the south that did not get the extension that is awarded to some areas in the country. So there's also that, the concerns around the fact that it's not all over the country that the extension is happening. It's specific areas.
Yes.
What is your take on that in terms of a democratic approach to a free and fair election?
My attitude towards that is that when you listened to our reporters who have been reporting, flooding us with content from across the country, they have reported glitches from almost every region that we were represented in. People saying in this region, power went off for 4 hours. In this region, ballot papers ran out and people had to drive back to Windhoek to get a new consignment, and all of that. So to then conveniently leave out those regions as if the people in those regions do not matter, as if they are not citizens of this country, as if their vote does not count, that is criminal in my view. They ought to have said, if these chosen 4 regions were arrived at with the consensus of all political parties that were invited to ECN yesterday, I would understand that everybody is satisfied, everybody is happy. I have seen sentiments now, people saying, some IPC people saying, Rongo region, of course, is their stronghold as it's emerging, and there's not a single voting option for those there. The North, Oshikoto region has an option, they are re-voting, they are continuing. Oshana region is continuing. This is SWAPO stronghold. Kunene, you could argue that there's a strong element of PDM and UDF there, but SWAPO has already shown that actually they are winning quite comfortably in Kunene. So we can only speculate, especially in the absence of clear communications from ECN.
Now, on that note, let's quickly take a look at this video of Louis Hangula from Oshandubala, Oshakati East, who was the first one to vote at the Eva Luloko Secondary School polling station. Hangula said she was unable to vote on Wednesday because the voter verification machine froze just as she was next. Let's have a look.
Mahololo, wenda na meshkulonen. Session2 hapo ponan. Popo umawala tami kamo 27. Taita upako. Kako induti tena waka. Shashu wende ndamenek. Ndahupira ko ukaimaka kataka friza ko Shandubar. Ndakenda bara po okuya mevuruluko ndanga muyadi andi ko mandengu ndanga kuyadi kunyandanga ko rupadilang andi ko nyako ko gavana ndanga kuyadi unona vange veli mumbo ndati nandikali nandihola ngeno kwa ina uyangeli nandihola ngeno ndaupa tizoete ndameneka nduudi tombirine na vina vaholo ya mongula na vengo.
Now, Trevor, I did not understand most of that. Could you give us what she was saying?
Yeah, what she's saying is that on Wednesday she was in the queue in Evululuko, and I think she said in Evululuko, and the machine then froze. The tablets that whatever devices they're using, they froze. Then people were urged to go elsewhere, and then she went elsewhere. She went to 3 more sites, 3 more after the first one, and all of them were full. And then she's saying that I decided not to vote anymore. Only, of course, to learn last night, I'm sure, that there was a second opportunity now to vote. That scenario is a genuine scenario, but it did not only exist in that part of the country. You could go to the south today, you could go to Omahega today, you could go to wherever today. You will, Erongo, whatever, you will find people with similar stories to say I was in the queue, and when there were only 5 more people in front of me, the thing froze and I had to leave.
Or the ballot papers were, ran out, and we either had to wait for hours, or, and some people, like you said, shared the same sentiment that they went home.
So what do you do with similar citizens who had the same situation as the good lady there, but for some reason it's only the good lady who is afforded the opportunity for second voting, while others across the country are not afforded the same thing? ECN decided that.
Can we take a look at your paper today? I know that you did write the lead story, which is Namibia, Netumbo rather, leading SWAPO, gasping for 50% advantage. We did touch on that when we were looking at the results that have trickled in so far, that just because the political party is leading doesn't necessarily mean it has that 50+ advantage that it needs.
Yes. Yeah, so that is exactly, and when I wrote this story yesterday, it was just really, there were no constituency results announced yet anywhere across the country. We were simply looking at some of the major polling stations whose results were announced, and the picture that was emerging just from those polling stations without the constituency tally was that of Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah leading. You see, for her it's a bit better because first and foremost, she's doing better than the party. She seems to be quite popular even in non-traditional SWAPO strongholds, which is very, very good for Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. The problem is that, and the process for president and vice president, I mean for the presidential election is not too complicated. It's either you make the 50% mark or you don't. So what I then said in the story is that SWAPO was struggling with that 50% mark. They were not making that. They were winning marginally above other parties, but collectively they were actually losing to the opposition insofar as getting that 50% is concerned.
I think so far with the 5 constituencies that we've looked at, the SWAPO party has a 40%. And what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I mean, consistent exactly with what we are saying. I think we must also be fair to, or be alert to the fact that the SWAPO traditional constituency, the strongholds of SWAPO are not yet out. So we have we have 2 regions from the south, 2 constituencies from the south, 3 rather, Karasbek East, Gibeon, and Aranos. Not a SWAPO stronghold by any stretch of imagination. And then you have Arandes. It's a mixed bag there for SWAPO. Sometimes they win, sometimes they do not. Mukwe, of course, is it's fair to say that Mukwe is a SWAPO stronghold. That one is true. So the northern regions that have a lot of voters, that have a lot of constituencies, have not come out yet. I think that is where you are going to see now SWAPO surging towards that 50% mark, perhaps, but that will have to be reconciled now with other regions eventually. But it will be very reckless of us to think that SWAPO is now trailing and that trend will continue while their strongholds are not yet in. The picture will change, but we'll see how that reconciles with the rest of the country.
In your paper, we do have a story on the police allegedly harassing journalists on election day. So this was the Wednesday.
Yes.
Can we get into that?
Yeah, I will not say much on it. The fact of the matter is that one of our reporters at Namibia at Network Media Holdings, Network Media Hub, sorry, that we had deployed to Omaheka region was involved in a road accident that involved our company car and a government car there in Khobabes. And they then, the processes that usually ensue after something like that were simply ignored, according to the version of those who were on the site, the eyewitnesses. They took our reporter to the police station, tested her for alcohol. The police officer or the person who was in the other car was refusing to give their breathalyzer test. And we had a situation where they were literally harassing Elani Smith, our reporter, and there were also issues like the car did not even have a valid disc, that thing that you put there, the roadworthiness, all these things. And when they were being pointed out, they just got angrier and almost violent with our reporter, and we condemn that in the strongest sense. We do not want the journalists must be allowed to do their work, especially when they have identified themselves immediately that they were journalists. We're not saying that they have special privileges on the road, but we have to be, and this is a woman, you can't just treat them like you're talking to
I totally understand your sentiments. We'll be right back after this short break.
Goeiedag, my naam is Arie Hougaard en ek is die aanbieder van Kaap Vol Hoop en dit is die Kaap wat ons gesels en die Kaap is vol hoop. Maar ons vertel die stories van die Kaap en omgewing en daar's lekker stories, lekker interessante stories van wat gebeur en ons praat met die mense, ons hoor hulle ervarings, ons luister ook na die musiek en ons drink die wyn, ons proe die wyne van die wynkelders en ons eet die kos en ons hoor wat sê die chefs van waar kom die beste resepte vandaan. Dit is 'n mooi wêreld die Kaap, daar's baie wat die Kaap bied. Daar's baie wat in die Kaap gebeur en by Kaap Vol Hoop vertel ons die stories. So skakel in elke week op Kaap Vol Hoop.
Tourismus is a TV show that explores various tourist destinations, providing viewers with in-depth coverage of locations, events, and experiences. The show presents detailed insights into destinations, cultural highlights, and travel tips to engage both local and international audiences.
Discover your dream home with My.NA Property, a show that focuses on real estate, property development, as well as lifestyle. So whether you are a first-time buyer, a seasoned investor, or simply just exploring, this is your ultimate guide to making informed decisions about property. My name is Aina Raisa Koyo, and you can catch me every Thursday at 9 p.m. on DSTV 285 and GoTV 25 to discover more beautiful properties around Namibia. Don't miss out, your dream property awaits.
This is Election Watch 2024. Trevor and I would like to continue our conversation. I know we were talking about the issues raised around the ECN's conduct of these election, and we do have a statement from the SADC election observers. Can you read that for us?
Yeah. So we have a statement from the SADC election observers who, of course, observed this election. Oh, yeah, you'd have to read that.
Yes. So according to the statement, 62.5% of polling stations opened on time at about 7 a.m. However, 37.5% opened late due to delays caused by the late arrival of party agents, poor preparations by polling officials, and occasional scuffles in queues outside polling stations. Now, long queues were observed at polling stations before opening. In all the observed polling stations during the opening, the presiding officers showed the empty ballot boxes to all present before locking and sealing them. The voters' rollout was not displayed at any of the polling stations observed. Our observers were informed that the voters' rollout was not displayed because voters were allowed to vote anywhere in the country. Voters' fingers were scanned to verify if they had not voted. Now, polling procedures were observed in 221 polling stations, and this was the observation. The environment at the polling stations was relatively calm and peaceful, and no significant incidents of violence or intimidations were observed. 94% of polling stations observed were peaceful and conducive to voting. However, 6% faced issues such as poor crowd control and long queues, which were likely caused by the slow process of voters. All polling stations observed adhere to regulations prohibiting campaign materials in their vicinity, reflecting strict compliance with electoral guidance and ensuring a neutral voting environment. And another observation was that the security personnel were present at all polling stations. What's your take on this statement?
Yeah, so I don't know whether we'll, of course, scrutinize the statement further as time goes, but I'm very much interested in whether the observation also delves into the very issues that we're discussing here today. To say, for example, these extensions of voting, whether they are compliant with the law and stuff like that. The fact that ballots seem to have been in shortage in some areas, whether it was the deliberate attempt to sabotage some strongholds of certain political parties, or it was just poor logistical planning. I'm interested in hearing what they have to say about that. I must just also tell you that before I came to studio, that the Independent Patriots for Change, through their lawyer Dirk Conradi, have also issued they've written another letter, because they wrote a letter on Wednesday urging ECN to call off the election. And this morning at the office we were saying to ourselves, you know, why have they gone quiet about that? Is it because IPC is not doing necessarily too bad and now suddenly they're starting to get confidence in the results, or what is it? But now Dirk Conradi wrote a letter to ECN this afternoon saying that the they are questioning the legality of President Nangolo Mbumba extending this voting period just in the manner that they did, without the 15-day period that is being talked about in the Electoral Act, and without giving political parties an opportunity to send polling agents to this station so that they are represented to observe the fairness and transparency of the process, and all of that. So we do not, and they are still calling on ECN to stop the continuation of this process, threatening, of course, that if it continues, they might have to go to court to establish, to get recourse as to why things were done in that way. So that is the tragedy that we face as far as this election is concerned.
And tensions are, rife, as we witnessed yesterday at the ECN headquarters, where all the political parties were, and they did voice a lot of concern and also dissatisfaction with the ECN's conduct of this elections, the Namibian elections 2024. Any future problems that you foresee? You have, you are a journalist with so many years of experience. You are the editor of the Namibian Sun. Any trends of possibilities that you see that we can, have a lookout for?
Yeah, I hope that it doesn't escalate beyond what we saw yesterday. I hope that, so what happened yesterday is that people felt that the Secretary General of SWAPO was being treated differently from other representatives of parties at the ECN headquarters. I don't think it's a bad observation, knowing, for example, that not too long ago, ECN was summoned to State House, or not summoned. They went, they paid a courtesy, they were invited to State House for a courtesy visit to the President, and they arrived there only to find that the Secretary General of SWAPO was also among the people who were there. So this continuous causing up with SWAPO officials in a process that is supposed to be neutral can infuriate people, and I can understand.
Let's take a look at, continue, going through the statement that the SADC election observers made. So regarding the preparedness of the ECN, during the pre-election period, the mission noted that the stakeholders had confidence in how the elections had been organized and conducted. Most stakeholders commended the ECN for being professional and transparent. However, most of the stakeholders raised concerns, citing inefficiencies within the ECN, which they believed may have caused changes in the implementation of some of the processes, such as the procurement method of the printing of ballot papers. The mission noted the last-minute threat of temporary polling staff to withdraw their services due to their demand for higher remuneration. The mission also noted that operational matters such as contracting the temporary staff could have been done earlier to give enough room for negotiations. Nevertheless, the mission appreciated that the ECN came to an agreement with the aggrieved temporary staff. The mission noted that the voting on the 27th of November 2024 was characterized by operational lapses such as a shortage of ballot papers at polling stations, heating of tablets, running out of batteries for the ultraviolet light torches, and mobile polling stations leaving before some voters had cast their votes. So this is just some of the observations that the SADC election observers have made.
Please continue there, maybe
yes,
around the mid, maybe those two.
Yes, so
it's important to hear.
Regarding gender representation, our mission noted that Namibia scored highly in regional and global assessments of the representation of women in elected political positions, particularly in the National Assembly and consequently in the cabinet. However, our mission has also noted that most political parties do not implement policies to ensure gender representation, which may reverse the strides made by the country. Regarding the media, the mission noted the general positive assessment of the media as media houses strive to cover all political parties. However, there were some concerns about unequal coverage in the state-owned media. The mission also noted that some political parties relied on social media to communicate their political messages. And regarding the electoral law, the mission noted concerns by some stakeholders that while the law clearly articulates procedures during and after elections, there were still areas that could be improved to provide clarity and certainty. For instance, provisions on tendered votes, the period within which results ought to be announced, and management of the period between the announcement of results and the swearing in of office bearers.
Yeah, so there are two things that I want to comment on that. One is the preparedness of ISIAN. It has been, I think that observation by SADC is spot on. We've been saying for the past 3 days that ISIAN had 5 years, and they are behaving as if they were just told that there are elections within a month or so. And we even said that the death of President Hage Geingob in February was unfortunate, but at least it did not necessitate immediate elections within 90 days or so. And I'm saying if the circumstances were such that we needed to hold an election within a much shorter period as a result of that unfortunate death of the president, how would ISIAN have handled this process? So spot on SADC on that observation. In terms of the media, I think SADC omitted a very important thing there, because they seem to be confining themselves to the pre-election period, and they are not telling us what they observed during this period itself. We had a situation we have a situation, and I wrote about it in my editorial, to say that we cannot have preferential treatment of MBC. It's not correct. They are a national broadcaster. We understand that they play a different role slightly, but you cannot alienate media houses like they did on Wednesday night, where they had originally called a press conference. Then suddenly the press conference was just dubiously called off, only to see Peter Sharma speaking to MBC alone. That is not correct, because the assumption that everybody listens to this or that TV station or radio station, or they read this or that newspaper, is wrong. People have preferences, and by going only for one, you are actually leaving out so many people who do not necessarily prefer that platform. So they ought to have allowed everybody to go there, give them information. And the funny thing also, ECN, what they are doing is to make sure that they seem to be afraid of scrutiny and hard questions. So they want to cozy up with state media, with scripted conversations. They do not want to sit in front of everybody and be asked questions like the ones that we have a lot of them today. And there's no platform for us to speak to ISIAN. So on that, SADC did not do a good job.
Now, getting back to the election observers, I think most of the public, myself included, don't necessarily understand. We understand that the role is to ensure that there's a free and fair election, but when do they stop? When does their job stop? Because I understand that we're still having elections as we're speaking. Yeah. So are they still observing these elections? Is it just the observation of what happened on the Wednesday elections? Yeah,
so election observers do not stay long. They come in a few days prior to the election to see the processes, the build up to the voting day. And once voting has taken place, they observe what happens on voting day. And especially when you only have 1 day of voting, as originally was the case, then they leave immediately. That's why they are already busy with issuing statements and leaving. The one point that I want to mention quickly is to say that many observers have these templates, for example, where they say they only confine themselves to areas where there are five-star hotels. Like that is their standard. It's not so if you go to Oshakati I mean, they cannot deploy people to Rundu or Shakati or Usakos where such facilities, accommodation facilities, do not exist. So they just confine themselves mostly to the major urban centers where these five-star things occur, and they can never know what is happening in smaller towns.
All right, we have definitely run out of time, but let me take a look at Frederick Rugoro, the returning officer for Mukwe constituency in the Kavango East region, who has confirmed that the final results for the constituency have been concluded. However, Rugaro addressed a misleading social media post claiming that a single polling station recorded approximately 10,000 votes, clarifying that the figure represents the total for the entire constituency. He revealed that the parliamentary results was allegedly leaked by an observer from a political party during the verification process. When results are counted, they must first be sent to the Electoral Commission of Namibia, ECN, for confirmation before being made public, Rugaro explained, emphasizing the importance of adhering to due processes to avoid misinformation. I believe we have a video on this as well.
Yeah, good morning, all Mukwe and the whole Namibia. I'm the returning officer for Mukwe constituency in Kavango East region, Frederick Rugoro. Just wanted to inform the nation and the Mukwe constituency that we almost done with the collation center. We finished with the counting, and it took us, some of the team finished around 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning yesterday, and we went through the verification, the collation center. And we agree with the political parties to summarize and do the result. I have now the preliminary result which I have done. Yes, for me, it's only to forward it to the ECN headquarters so that they can look through and give me a green light so that I can officially announce the result. However, it is a concern that some of the political parties have taken the result and forward to the media without being officially announced. That result is for the collation center. It's not for particular polling stations. What is done at the collation center is to get all the polling stations result. You collate them and put them together, and then you announce the result for the constituency. If there are people who are saying that the Mukwe constituency, one of the polling stations in the constituency, have recorded 10,000 people. That is not true. It is for the collation center.
So you cannot say that you're confirming the results that are out there accurate. The accurate results will be announced by ECN, is basically what you're saying.
No, it's not. It's not that way. We have a system which gives us accurate. The system just to confirm and see, because they have the same information with us. So they can look at their system and just say, no, you can now announce.
So that is done digitally and then sent to the ECN?
Correct.
So once they confirm that, then that is then shared back to you guys for you guys to now make it public.
Public. And even the ECN now will start putting in the media so the media can read what is going on in the Mukwe constituency.
Okay.
Trevor, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the man is correct. The official is correct. Because what he explained quite well there is to say that because I think people are mixing polling stations with the collation center. You have polling stations across the constituency who are now feeding into what is called the collation center, which is the overall center for the entire constituency. So someone seems to have thought that the collation center was a polling station, and then they are saying, oh, that polling station had nearly 10,000, when that nearly 10,000 actually, like we saw, it is 9,955 if I remember correctly. Yeah, that is the figure. That is a collation center figure. He is mentioning that they usually that they speak to head office and just check if the figures tally. For example, maybe you say the constituency has 6,000 people, but suddenly you are saying there are 7,000. Of course, in this election it's possible because people can vote in wherever they find themselves, even from outside the constituency. But I think he's just making a good point to say that is a coalition center result.
All right, Trevor, thank you so much for your time. And with that, we have come to the end of today's Election Watch 2024. From me, Glenora Shipura. Until next time.